Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another installment of MediaPost webinar series. I'm Mike Winkleman, Content Director of Bespoke by MediaPost, and we have a great presentation and panel discussion for all of you today put together by our friends at Reveal. MediaPost webinars bring together the media, marketing, and advertising community to learn more about the methodologies and technologies that make effective business possible across a variety of categories, brought to you by our industry's top solutions providers, marketers, and practitioners. Leading today's webinar will be Dan Dillons, Reveal's CMO, who will be joined by Mike Swan, Managing Partner of Liberty Interactive Marketing, and Chad Hallert, Chief Digital Officer of Foundry. Their focus today, how agencies deliver business outcomes for brick and mortar clients, is especially relevant given recent reports on the resurgence of brick and mortar commerce. In the course of this presentation, Dan, Mike, and Chad will help you understand the ways in which digital agencies, in order to provide greater strategic value to their clients, are looking beyond the standard ad platforms, driving business-level KPIs for marquee brick and mortar clients. This is all tremendously timely and important information, and I, for one, have been looking forward to hearing what they've got to tell us. Before we get started, just a reminder, after the presentation, we'll have some time for a Q&A session. You can submit your questions at any time during the presentation in the question box that you'll find on the GoToWebinar interface on the right of your screen. With that, let's bring in Dan to get things going. Dan, take it away.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate the intro. It's great to be back with everybody here and our friends at MediaPost. We love presenting webinars with MediaPost. They're one of our favorite partners, and we are delighted, as Mike said, to bring you these insights on how agencies, two in particular, are delivering high-value business outcomes for some really big, great brick and mortar names. So let me go ahead and jump in with a couple of just agenda items here, and we'll get rolling. The meat of the matter of today's webinar really is the agency perspectives you're going to get from both Mike and Chad, and of course you can see them on the screen. They're joining us here today, and they're going to talk to you about really how they are delivering every day on the metrics that truly matter. Before we get to those stories, though, I have a couple of slides just up front to set the stage for what brands are looking for from agencies, and frankly, how agencies are optimizing or tuning the business to make sure they're delivering on those wants. And then, of course, we're going to hear from Mike and Chad, as I mentioned. Mike's going to talk about how to deliver extremely high-value outcomes without all the money in the world, right? Wouldn't that be great? And then Chad's going to talk about how to find efficiency across a range of verticals. So two really unique perspectives, two totally different parts of the country, two totally different vertical focus areas. So you're going to hear a good, rich set of stories today. So thanks for joining us today, Mike and Chad. I appreciate it. And then we're going to wrap up with just a free access to a tool that gives you insight into your foot traffic at your brick and mortar locations. That's something we think about here a lot at Reveal Mobile. And of course, your questions, just as important as anything we can cover today, are the things you care most about, right? Which is the stuff you're going to ask us at the end of maybe 35, 45 minutes. We'll have you out of here. So with that, let me go ahead and just set some context around what brands are looking for from agencies today. A couple of months ago, a study was produced called Agency Outlook 2022, the Year of Value. So it's a couple months old, but still highly relevant. And it revealed what brands are looking for from their agencies, right? And this could be any type of agency. It doesn't need to be the big holding groups. It's really whoever you're partnering with on the brand side. Now, it looked at two elements, both the prospect phase and the client phase. So it's not a one and done. And when a brand is a prospect, they really want three things according to this research. They first and foremost want to know from the jump what you're really the best at. It's easy to fall into this trap, right? Of looking like just about every other agency. In some ways, you know, we've all been guilty of that in the past. The brand wants to know what you're better at than everybody else in your category. And the goal for the agency, of course, is to tune and position and differentiate around that really great thing. We know you do 18 things, but what's the one? Now, the second thing they're looking for is to get rid of all the jargon. Be clear, be brief. And then thirdly, the prospect wants sort of the pitch of yesteryear to go away. It's costly, it's time consuming. You bring all the guns right to the party, and in the end, what they're looking for is a much more tailored, much more customized pitch that maps to their business objectives, which of course is what you're going to get to deliver on when they're a client. So on the client side, when they're actually signed, they're looking for three things also. And this really goes to the heart of what we're talking about on today's webinar through the lens of Mike's and Chad's experiences. As a client, first and foremost, they want those relationships. Of course, everyone wants relationships, but what that means is to know at a DNA level, what are the numbers, what are the processes, what are the operational metrics they're looking to drive. They want you to own those, know those, and live those, right? So that's the relationship element they're looking for. And then secondly, they're looking for strategy, naturally, who isn't, but not just really great execution, not just execution based on, some great strategic insight, but an analysis of their business first, and then you can execute tactically if you want to, right? Once you know what they're truly trying to drive, the execution can take any number of forms. And together, that is a strategic approach to how the customer is looking to be served, or the client's looking to be served. And then lastly, be agile, be nimble, be flexible. They don't want you to get bogged down as an agency in your own processes. They don't want you to get bogged down in, painstaking creative processes. They want you to be fairly fast and fairly effective. And they want at the end for you to drive those business KPIs, and of course marketing KPIs as well. And all this to say, this is the brand view of what agencies need to be delivering on. So we took a look now at a second study, actually, that reveals what agencies are actually doing to map to those objectives that the brands are looking for. So the second study is the 2022 SOTA report on the agency landscape, and it really tells the story of agencies through two perspectives. One is when agencies work on the business, that is at a fundamental foundational level, what are they focused on? And frankly, it's good news. They're focused first and foremost on operational efficiency, which gets to that notion of not being bogged down, delivering quickly, delivering in a customized way, so that when they work on this particular goal, it benefits the entire consultancy, right? It's not just a team or a function. The second thing they're working on, which is of course what the whole world is working on, is finding great people. And they're out there, they're just expensive, right? And they're hard to find often. So that's a story for another webinar. And then thirdly, these sales and marketing resources is a great way to focus at the foundational level, because this speaks to how agencies are finding their singular expertise and then differentiating on that. So that's a real focus for agencies when they're working on the business at sort of a meta level. Now, when agencies are working inside the business, this is the day-to-day delivery and the briefs and the delivery and the optimization. The agency population is also focused on the right things, as it turns out. First and foremost, efficiency, right? Smoother workflows, faster delivery. The brands told us that they want to have, right? They want to have agile delivery. They don't want to get bogged down. That's the number one priority on the day-to-day. And then when it comes to positioning and differentiating, that second thing they're working on in the business every day is the sales process. What does it look like to pitch? What does it look like to engage with an agency before you are a client? So that's the right thing to be focusing from the agency standpoint. And then thirdly, of course, lead gen, which is about pipeline creation naturally. And then we're back to hiring and retention. So that's, again, a story for another day. All that to say, we have two dynamite agencies to tell you, sort of bring these realities in data to real life. So let's actually pivot now and switch to the first story we have, which is Mike Swan at Liberty Interactive. Mike, tell us about the agency.
Thanks, Dan. First thing here, thank you all for being here. Wanted to first start out with a little bit of detail about our agency so you can better understand our perspective and how we're working with brick and mortar businesses. So we were founded in 2006. We are a ads management and digital marketing consultancy focused on optimizing restaurant brands and e-commerce companies for the digital world. Our core expertise is search engine marketing, paid and organic, paid social advertising, as well as all manner of programmatic media buying and planning. We work with over 200 companies that range in size from fresh startups to large organizations with in-house resources. We are a Google Premier Partner. We've been so since 2017 when the program started. We are also a Meta Agency Marketing Partner, and we are one of a handful of agencies that have a case study on Facebook.com that recognizes our outstanding work for a couple of our QSR brands. And the founder of our company is also on the beta panel for interface changes to Facebook. So Sometimes we hope she can fix things, sometimes we can't, but you never know, but we're putting in a vote. Aside from that, our knowledge and expertise in restaurant and e-commerce leads us to seek out the best options for our clients, whether that's data providers, inventory, or media delivery. Our goal is to find the best possible solution for that campaign and for that objective at any time. And we can never know it all, so we're always trying to learn, always trying to evolve to stay ahead to serve our clients as best we can. So when clients come to us, there's generally two things that are most important to them, or the things that they're lacking. And those are in understanding the true impact of digital advertising for their brick and mortar, and then how to allocate media dollars accordingly. So when they come to us, the first thing we want to do is educate them on the metrics and data needed to evaluate their desired outcomes. I'm sorry. The thing that we find is that oftentimes the clients don't really understand the platforms very well, how they work together, and what KPIs are really important for their income. So we need to solve for that. In order to do so, as an agency, we really need to understand the dynamics of the business so that we can truly help them figure out what they need to do to both understand what the advertising is doing and then how to allocate those dollars. So when we're doing that, we're looking at things like customer lifetime value, repeat business rate, customer acquisition cost, average order value. All these things go into the analysis of impact and allocation. However, as we all know, there are some challenges in marketing and marketing and tracking and measurement that we're facing. The decreases in third-party data are changing the way we have to plan and target media. Less data means a compressed funnel. It means we have to learn to use different channels in different ways to make sure we can drive those outcomes. Things like opt-outs on mobile devices, legislation like GDPR, reduced support for third-party cookies in browsers and mobile devices. All these things are making it more difficult. So if we don't have an unlimited budget, what do we have to do? So what we want to do is we want to work together with our clients to build our first-party data. So we want to analyze the client first-party data that is available to learn more about their customers. Basically, it's just use what you have, but start now. The time is of the essence to get this going. Then what we want to do is identify and address any gaps in data. So POS data, loyalty, email, SMS, location tracking, online ordering systems. Not every client doesn't have every one of these, but they are going to have a few. And get in there, figure out what you have, and that's what you build your data strategy around, and then learn and build from there. So another thing we found is that running test campaigns can provide a treasure trove of information to help better understand the customers and their journey. So utilizing findings of these data sources to run digital advertising campaigns where you'll gather additional ad platform information to validate the audiences and measure results. So digital measurement is powerful. These are just a few of the measurement tools that we use to measure the impact of our advertising for our clients. Device location and movement. We know how many devices have been to which locations. We know where they've been. We know something about how long they stay. Multi-touch attribution. We know if someone saw a connected TV ad, then a native ad, then a display ad before visiting a store. We can see all these combinations. We can see how many people took those paths and how efficient that path was. In-store and behavioral lift. We can identify the incremental value of our advertising by measuring the results against a control group. For example, in March, one of our mid-sized QSR chains, we found that those that saw an ad visited a store at a 75% higher rate than those that did not see the ad. Ad interaction. Did people see the ad or did they just scroll right past it? In 2021, one of our larger national QSR brands, their video ads were in view for an average of 15.93 seconds per user. That added up to 167,000 hours of ad exposure. So once we've done all that, we need to leverage those learnings to bring it all together. So we want to examine the efficiency of current media spend, analyze findings, and assimilate new data. So that's where multi-touch attribution comes in. By knowing the paths that people took, we can understand that video and display, if you put them together, they provide twice the response rate. More than twice as many people per given person reached will visit a store. If we add native into that, it goes up to 3 times. So based on this, we can determine how many dollars to put in what channel to drive what expected return at a particular cost. Then we reallocate budget and develop new creative based on learnings. Got a couple examples for you. So using location data for one of our clients, we learned that only 20% of their existing customer base was coming from within a 5-mile radius, which is our normal advertising targeting distance. So that means that 80% of their customers were coming from outside of it and were not being exposed to our ads. That's a lot of incremental revenue that we were likely missing. In another example, we found that only 16% of customers were coming to a store 2 months in a row. So with those customers, we're going to show them a loyalty ad. The 84% that didn't come back the second month, we'll show them a win-back offer, try to get them back in. A lot of dollars can be made from that. So I've presented a framework to get started, regardless of your client's budgets, but there are some other key agency success factors. Performance, program health, and growth. We need to make sure that we're growing revenue, we're growing the organization. In order to do that, we want to measure things like blended ROAS. We find that there's lots of crossover in the customer journey. So just measuring based on what Facebook's saying or what Google's saying, that can lead to false responses. So if we look at the overall revenue base divided by the ad spend, that gives us a benchmark from which to grow and optimize. Remember, we're not looking at CTRs and CPCs, but true business outcomes. From the agency side, don't work in a vacuum. Don't silo your teammates. Get everyone working towards that common goal for that client. Clients are now not just looking for ads management. They need business analysis. They need forecasting. You need to work with all the different groups. With the client, we want to make sure we're working with everybody across the organization to make sure the desired outcomes are known, not just advertising outcomes, but actual business outcomes. We want to get stakeholder buy-in. That way, everyone's working in the same direction. We're talking with the CEOs, we're talking with the CFOs, we're talking with operation heads. That way, everybody's rowing in the same direction. And boards are now more invested in digital than ever. So it's very important that we take the information we have and we bring it to a level that's useful for our context to then present it to their board members. And then they're the ones that will, largely it trickles down, because what we all want is to grow our client relationships, have long relationships, and have very pleasant and productive ones. Now I'll turn it over to Chad to go deeper into location data and how it can be used to drive business outcomes for brick and mortar businesses.
Thanks so much, Mike. Appreciate being here. Appreciate your time. I know everybody's got a lot going on and a lot to juggle nowadays. So, Mike and Dan did a great job. They kind of went over some industry trends, some of the agency approaches to the current environment we're in. What I want to do is really dive deep into how we see location data, we call it geofence data, but how we see this type of data becoming really foundational to how agencies are succeeding moving forward. Like Mike, I'll give you a real quick overview of our agency. We're a full service integrated marketing agency. We were founded in 1993, almost 30 years old, looking pretty good still. We've got 50 team members located throughout the US. Our headquarters is about 30 minutes outside of Lake Tahoe in Reno, Nevada. We've got a lot of skiers and snowboarders on our team. And we have heavy investment in travel and tourism. So about 65% of our client mix is casinos, resorts, restaurants, tourism industry, tourism destination marketers, things of that nature. The other 35% is really an interesting mix of B2b services, healthcare, automotive, quite diverse. And although I'm a little biased as the Chief Digital Officer, our digital team is quite outstanding. I'm very proud of them. We've got a really great group of experts that have a lot of experience across industries. In fact, as a group, we've got experience running global digital strategy and campaigns for half a dozen Fortune 500 companies. So a lot of diverse experience we're proud of that we bring to the table. So let's start with understanding what's so great about location-based data and geofencing, right? So as an agency, our culture tends to be pretty skeptical of new and shiny objects. You know, you saw some of our logos we work with. We work with Caesars Entertainment, some really big clients. So as you can imagine, we're getting emails and phone calls, text, you know, all the time with the greatest thing we need to be doing. And a lot of times they overpromise and underdeliver. So we were also this way with this type of technology. But at the same time, we saw, you know, things happening with privacy policy laws, with platforms removing types of targeting that we relied on. So we had to be open and experiment. So over the past year, we've done quite a bit of work with Reveal and kind of this geofence location intelligence data. And we've come to learn its power. And for us now, it's really become a key part of our audience segmentation strategy. So if you look at the graph on the screen, what you're going to see is that we've kind of got two extremes, right? One extreme is your most valuable audience, which also tends to be the audience you know the most about. The other is your least valuable audience, which is oftentimes your kind of broad mass marketing, mass advertising you do. And although at the extreme of the most profitable, you're looking at things like for B2B service, a prospect list, you know, maybe you acquired on your website through a white paper download. For a store, you know, it'll be something like I did with Sleep Number. We went into the store, we looked at the bed, it was so expensive. We gave them our email address, they advertised to us for 4 months, we finally caved and bought it. You know, and at the other extreme, yeah, you've got like your typical out of home. I say typical because there are ways to do things a little more creatively. But you know, you have a freeway, you know it's going to your business, you drop a billboard, right? That's very, very broad. But we see geofencing data really fit into a great place near the front end of that, right? It's people that are showing we call it IRL, in real life activity that shows they have an intent for what you're offering if you do it right. So you can kind of see the spread there. We'll actually put geofencing data ahead of some things you typically see in campaigns such as interest-based advertising, contextual advertising, where you're trying to match an ad creative to an actual article topic based on an algorithm's interpretation of that article. We're putting geofencing ahead of that and actually using geofencing data first before we even move budget to those other channels. But we had some work to do before we were able to put this type of audience to play with our clients. And our clients are great because they ask really hard questions and challenge us, right? So one of the questions our clients posed to us was in regard to what we call our competitive conquesting strategy, right? So I'm sure Mike's team uses it, something we all use, but the idea is, you know, we've got a brick and mortar business, and then we've got regional and local competitors, right? So we're going to geofence those competitive locations, and we're going to look back. You know, it could be 90 days, could be a year, whatever. We're going to capture those device IDs and then show them advertisements and try to win them over as customers. I wanted to say steal, that might be a little aggressive. We'll say win over as customers. So our clients were great though. Our clients said, well, hey, before we spend money in this, how do we know that we don't already have those customers? You know, if we're a restaurant and there's 15 restaurants in this city that are similar, you know, steakhouses, for example, how do we not know they don't go to us one month and another client the other month, and they already exist in our CRM? Like, why would we spend money when these people are in our CRM? So we ran a study with several clients where we looked at the mobile device IDs of their competitor segments, their competitor locations, over a 90-day period. We actually did their location, the client's business location, over a 90-day period, and we compared those lists. And what we found is there's very little crossover. We found on average less than 10% of the people going to the competitive locations actually go to our client location. So what this does is we can go back to our clients and go, hey, you're going to advertise to this group. You're going to be able to see if they come back and walk in the doors of your business. 9 out of 10 of those people are brand new. You didn't have them before. You're not advertising to people you already have. This is all incremental. So this was a really important study for us to kind of get the value of this audience. We also wanted to challenge the idea that we can't find these people through more traditional media placement methods, right? So an example here is that we worked with one of our restaurant clients and created an audience with similar types of restaurants. We'll just say steakhouses in a 35-mile radius. And we generated a list of 26,000 device IDs. We then said, well, hey, what if we just go into Facebook, do a radius and say we want people interested in dining, restaurants, and happy hour, right? All good things. That was a huge list. We compared the two lists, and we actually found of the 26,000 people that we identified geofencing, only 5,000 were reflected in that bigger interest-based audience. So again, this proves to us that the list we're generating through geofencing is truly incremental people and brand new audience members we were leaving on the table before. We had no access to them. And so, now we know the value of this audience, but what types of industries does it work within, right? What types of industries can really gain value? So you can see the list of who we're working with, the types of industries we're working with. We have kind of 3 rules we follow. One is you got to have a brick and mortar, check. That's pretty important. Number 2 is we really want businesses that have the opportunity for recurring revenue, recurring purchases, right? So I use the analogy of like a spa or hot tub dealer, dealer. You can look back at last month who was in that dealer, but if they already bought, you got no shot. That spa is going to last for 20 years, right? Or 10 years. But if you think of restaurants, some niche retailers, golf courses, ski resorts, casinos, of course, that have spas and a bunch of amenities, these types of businesses are really powerful and fit in with the technology perfectly. We've also had some luck with special events. And I do want to give you an example of this special event. We work with a local air race event, really popular event in Northern Nevada. They race a variety of, Top Gun style, a variety of airplanes and, old, new, everything in between. They're very popular. People come from all over the world, but they're trying to grow their audience with younger and new people that aren't necessarily hardcore air enthusiasts. One of their ideas was that NASCAR enthusiasts are great air race enthusiasts. And so our idea there was, why don't we geofence national NASCAR races during the weekends and weeks they have these big events, capture that list and serve them advertisements to say, hey, if you like air race, or if you like NASCAR racing, you're going to love air racing. It's way faster. And so the only limit here is your creativity, right? So we try to follow those 3 kind of rules of the road in terms of industry matchup, but really you can get as creative as your mind allows. And as much as I say we have 3 rules, we're actively breaking these 3 rules right now. We're trying some things. So some areas we're having a lot of prelim success, but we need some more time, are with airlines. We work with a low-cost air carrier that competes with Southwest, JetBlue, Avelo, some of these locations. So our thoughts with them is, hey, let's target the airports you're both in and actually dial down to that terminal, that Southwest terminal, and target those people that are flying those low-cost carriers. We work with the state of Nevada, and so there's a lot of cool things to see in Nevada. You got Lake Tahoe, you got the Vegas Strip, of course. You got Area 51, right, which is kind of cool. So, who's interested in that? Well, we have this idea that if we target similar West Coast attractions like the Grand Canyon, those same people would want to visit and see kind of rural Nevada and all that we have to offer. B2b events are a no-brainer. So I was at the Anaheim Convention Center a few weeks ago for a marketing conference. If you're selling stuff to marketing people, geofence that conference location, pull the list, shoot them out an ad for a white paper, right? No brainer. And a little bit more on the experimental side is this ethnicity kind of thing. So Facebook several months ago eliminated the ability to target by ethnicity, right? On their platform. It's now protected demographic. The problem is some of our casino clients especially do, they have a Chinese New Year celebration, they have a Filipino concert series, they do these events that are targeted at certain groups and audiences. So we have kind of this idea of, what if we go to densely populated kind of metro areas like, historic Filipino town in LA, target that area and show them a campaign for a Filipino concert series. Will that work? So we haven't done that yet, but it's, it's an idea we have on the table. But the point is, again, these are really unique ways that more than likely your competition and your client's competition are not doing, right? So it gives you a chance to get ahead of them. And want to share a success story, can't share a lot of hard numbers, so kind of an aggregate success story. So, casinos and resorts are a big portion of our clients leveraging this technology. They all have very, similar goals. Number 1, acquire new customers in a cost-effective way. Number 2, get in front of existing customers and build loyalty and gain additional share of wallet, right? Either by limiting the small percentage that does go to the competition or just promoting additional amenities, right? Like the spa, the golf course, etc. So what we will often do is, number 1, we try to get a location-based data set or a geofence audience in every campaign we do. So if we've got a campaign that's remarketing website visitors, we're going to add a geofence audience for property visitors that have been to the property and not, maybe they visited 6 months ago, but not 3 months ago. kind of a look back there. If we're targeting people interested in gaming, gambling, we're going to target people that went to the competitors. Why wouldn't we, right? That's their interest. It's an in real life expression of interest. So that becomes the core, is kind of making sure every existing campaign has a geofence audience set. And then occasionally we will run targeted campaigns just at that audience. Like we talked about Filipino Town for a concert series, that would be dedicated just to that audience. So those are kind of the two parallel paths. When we run these, what we see is a couple things. Number one, we see an uplift in all data, right? All performance data. So it's not, it's not the biggest uplift. Sometimes it could be a single digit or maybe a low double digit uplift, but we'll take a campaign that's running, we'll add a geofence audience, and we'll see a lift in impressions, clicks, conversion rate, revenue, lower cost per acquisition. We'll just see everything rise, which is great. And then what we'll do from there is we'll start tracking foot traffic, which is a huge unlock. Some of our clients, we report to them every month that several thousand people saw the ad, engaged with the ad, and then walked into their establishment, right? Which is huge. I mean, that's data we never had before. So for brick and mortars, it becomes extremely valuable. And so that's kind of the overview of what a casino, sees working with this technology. If we go to the next slide, Dan. What we're really trying to get across to them is it's not a one and done deal, right? So it's not like you extract the list, put it into an ad campaign, and then if you don't convert them, that's, that run, you're done. You've wasted the value of that list. What we try to explain to our clients and work with them is that the geofence data, the mobile device IDs that you match, is really an entry point. So you get this audience into your omni-channel approach, you layer on a few demographics to make sure they're the right age, right income, etc. And then you place those ads, and depending on what they do, if they click and visit your website, if they convert, if they go to the property, they enter other streams using other technology and other channels that you've already preset, and it lets you stay in front of them. And if you do it right, you can have different ads set up to kind of move them through the buyer's journey from awareness to consideration to purchase and loyalty and repeat business, right? So you can kind of play this in a way that your list you pulled today is adding value for 6, 8, 12 months down the road through kind of a planned media strategy. And then last but not least, where do we see this going? Well, definitely we see this type of data really giving a huge impact to connected TV, streaming audio, those kind of blended traditional digital channels. We're also super excited or stoked, as we stand on the West Coast. We're super stoked about, Michael, appreciate that, about these things called view sheds. So this idea is we place billboards. We know 1 million people are driving by these billboards. We hope that the 10-second view they had before they sped by drives some value. But now what we can do is really create like a polygon, a view shed of who we think is 99.9% likely to have actually seen that billboard, capture those device IDs, and then for the next week or two, restate that message to them. So if it was a billboard for a concert at one of our casino resorts, they're going to see that concert throughout the web, right? Social and in the news, when they're reading the news, they're going to see that advertisement at least for the next week or two to try to bring that demand in and capture it. So those things are exciting. We also want to move away from just reporting people, going, hey, client, you had 1,000 people walk in the door this month, to what is that worth? So we have to work with the finance team. We have to get a conservative estimate of everybody that walks in the door, what that value is. But then all of a sudden you say, hey, you had 1,000 people walk in the door for 15,000 in estimated revenue value, and that really changes the conversation and makes it much more powerful. All that said, a lot of privacy stuff, a lot of laws changing, a lot of technology changes. So we're always, working with our partners directly to stay on top of it and make sure we're adjusting as needed. But just a powerful, next, 3-5 years of powerful opportunity we feel for geofencing to help agencies and clients produce great results. So that's my presentation. I was going to say I'll hand to Mike at Media Post and let him kind of wrap things up, and appreciate your time.
Thanks, Chad. That was great. And as I mentioned before, we have some time now for a few questions from the audience, which we'll get to in just a minute. First, a reminder, a copy of the recording of the webinar today will be sent to all of you via email today. So keep an eye out for that. So let's get to, I didn't interrupt you, Chad, did I? I thought you were, no, because I see some other things there. Okay, sorry.
I just want to mention briefly, Mike, if I could, I just want to mention briefly.
Sure.
It's a great slide to end on, Chad, the notion of out of home and how out of home is sort of this next, frontier in terms of real business impact because not only are you thinking about things like viewshed at Foundry, you're thinking about things like offline to offline attribution. So this notion of seeing a sign or seeing a screen and then going to a casino or going to a show is just as doable as it is with Instagram or TikTok or any other digital channel that you might think of as more, more bleeding edge. So anyway, awesome story to land on. And then Mike, if I may, one last item I wanted to just insert
Sure.
here. We think about foot traffic a lot at Reveal Mobile, right? Something we like to put a lot of stake in. So we built a free tool for the market to use whenever the market wants. We don't want an email address. We don't want a name. We don't even want to know what color your hair is. We just want you to use it. So at visit.revealmobile.com/free, you can type in any chain, any franchise, try whatever comes to mind, and you'll get a free foot traffic report that shows you what's your daily volume look like. What's the trend? Is it up or down? How far, as Mike was talking about, how far are people traveling to get to this establishment from either where they work or where they live? How many folks are coming more than once, right? Who else are they shopping at? So it's just a tool out in the world for you to use out of goodwill. We want to serve the market. So please make use of that. If you don't see the chain you're looking for, hit that little inconspicuous blue link at the bottom of the UI where it says you can get a custom foot traffic report. So even though your chain might not be in the database, Reveal Mobile has tens of millions of locations that we can provide foot traffic analytics for. So a freebie for everybody. With that, Mike, on to questions. Take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. That was great. So I also want to remind everybody in the audience, there's still time to get some questions in. So if you have some, put them in the question box and we'll get to them. Okay, Chad, this seems to be a question for you, and I don't think you answered it in your presentation, but how do you get a list of mobile IDs? Are you referencing sending a high frequency of ads on mobile to those geofences?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so I mean, the method to get those device IDs is really leveraging a platform like Reveal, right? Where you're able to go in, identify the location you want, create your geofence, and then what you're looking for is a look back period. Were they there last week, last month, up to 18 months ago? And when you run that analysis, you're able to actually pull a CSV file with mobile device IDs. And maybe Dan can elaborate on how those are gathered, typically, but you're able to get those device IDs, and then you take those device IDs into ad platforms as a first-party list. So it's really treated no different than a CRM list that you have on your client's email address, right? You take it in there, say you have 10,000 records, they're able to match a great portion of those, and then you can serve them ads. And so it's up to you as an advertiser to figure out your mix, in terms of what channels you're on with that, if you're mobile or desktop. What we tend to do is take those mobile device IDs and then let the platforms, once they identify them on Facebook, they can be served desktop or mobile, right? We let the platforms kind of optimize for device type, to get us the action we're wanting. But we start by using the mobile device ID to identify an anonymous person. And then from there, it kind of goes out. I will say another cool feature with Reveal and some other platforms is the ability, once you have the mobile device ID, you can extend that to household device IDs. And so, if you have a husband where, the wife makes all the decisions like my family, you get my device ID, and then you can actually capture hers as well through the family identifier, right? The household identifier. So I hope that answers the question. Dan, would you add anything onto that?
Yeah, happy to. It's a great comprehensive answer. You mentioned where the mobile ad IDs come from. It's very simple. They come from opted in mobile devices across the US. So we all carry phones, we all use location services because we want the weather, or we want a table at our local restaurant, or we want to book an appointment at some venue for a show. All of those services are transacted on the back of location data and the convenience it brings. So we essentially ingest that data in massively high volumes every day to enable audiences like the one Chad's talking about.
Okay, here's a somewhat related question, I think. How many brick and mortar locations do you need to make geofencing campaigns viable?
I can take that one. So it really depends on a few different factors. Our general client profile, they've got between 30 and 1,000 locations. We do at times run campaigns for smaller sets. I would say the ideal magic number is 5. 5 opens up the most opportunity for advertising within platforms, for data, for not only data from Reveal, but also from other sources. You can take it down to a single location level. In that case, it is very important to have something like Reveal Mobile that can give you that information. The challenge then becomes if you are a single location, it depends on your traffic volume, because you take those IDs and then you upload them to the platforms, Facebook, Google. Those then have to match to actual users before you can actually deploy media to those devices. So it really just kind of depends, but the free tool that Dan pointed out would be a great way to see if you've got enough critical mass in visit data and devices in order to get that match rate. And of course, look back window that Chad mentioned is huge there too. Maybe you're not getting that traffic on a 30-day window, but on a 90 or even longer, it is very, very viable to run an effective retargeting campaign on a single location.
Yeah, and just to add on, perfect answer, Mike. Just to add on, casinos and resorts are nice because they have so much volume, right? So much traffic. So with those, we're able to use a single location that works great. Restaurants, as Mike mentioned, some smaller retailers, I think 5, 7, right in there. You just need, it's kind of two things. One is you need the volume, right? Going foot traffic there, and also to your competition. And you also need an ad budget to activate the data, right? That's another thing you have to talk to clients. It's like the tech's great and you get the device IDs, but you need enough of an ad budget that you're going to get some critical mass and people to see those campaigns.
Okay. How do you tie visitation data to sales?
Yeah, maybe I'll go and then have Mike, add some expertise there. I think for us, it's where we're going, right? I mean, the nice thing for us is a lot of our clients, they're not in strip malls or things necessarily. They're in standalone locations, right? So, if you drive, 15 minutes away from the core city to go to a destination like a golf course, a ski resort, a casino, you're probably going to be a patron, right? You're probably a patron. There's an assumption we can make, but really, we take these lists and some of them do convert online for non-brick and mortar amenities. That's really easy, right? If they book a hotel room, if they buy a show ticket, we see the conversion, we see the revenue, we see it came from a Geofence audience. Check. For the on location stuff, to me, it's you've got to do an estimate. Mike may have some more sophisticated methods, but for us, we're really talking to our clients and saying, hey, work with your CFO. Let's figure out the value of somebody who walks in the door. Let's try to come up with it. And whatever the value is, if you're nervous, give us half of that. Let's just start somewhere to where we have a number we can put to something.
Yeah, I can tag on to that. I agree with everything Chad said. I would say that for our clients, there's a continuum that is based on the available budget. So some of them at the higher end do have systems like CDPs, customer data platforms, that ingest all of the data from their POS systems, from their loyalty programs, so that if we take, let's say, device IDs, we deploy media to those. We've got attribution reports through Reveal, but we also have the report that comes back through their internal system that can identify the exact dollars that were spent, the number of people that came in, all those things to really close that loop. For those that don't have that, that type of product, it scales down. There are different CRMs that can give you some of that information, POS data. There are offline imports to ad platforms and things like that can be done through the APIs. That's fairly inexpensive to try to tie those things together. But really, if we don't have those available, what we do is we work with finance and with the stakeholders to get a good idea, like Chad had mentioned, of a value, of a reasonable value for what that visit is worth, whether that be an average order for an individual or an average order for a table, since we work with a lot of restaurants, and then apply that to the number of store visits that we have. That gives a really good benchmark of how much value was gathered from that. But then what we need to do, though, is we then need to apply that to the overall revenue, as I mentioned, so that we can really understand there is going to be some duplication with other tracking methods, but to really understand what percentage of the value that equates, make sure that's reasonable, and then just adjust from there. That way, intuitively, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Here's an interesting one. What makes you pass on or resign a client?
What makes
I
you
think
pass
that's
on?
Is that resign? I think that's resign, maybe.
Yeah, maybe it is. It was the punctuation didn't. Yeah, it says resign. Well, maybe because it says pass on / resign, but it might mean resign. So resign instead of passing on. So interpret it any way you want, and let me know what you think.
Sure, I'll jump in first. I think that as I mentioned at the top of my slides, education is really important. There's so much complexity to what we do in the digital market, and there are things that are possible and there are things that are not possible. So being able to really understand the limitations that we're presented with, and then working with us, not just our marketing contacts, but everybody throughout the organization, to really find a way to understand what we can agree on is the mission critical items. So if we can't get there, or we're at a situation where we have a client that maybe doesn't want to take our counsel on it, we might not be the best fit. One thing with us is we have lots of opinions. So sometimes that's a fit, sometimes it's not. We never want to be order takers. So if we can move things forward and we see growth, we will keep a client, we will grow with that client. We've had clients for 15 years based on that. But aside from it, if we don't see the growth, then it's based on some limitation of the organization, because we can only be as good as our client. They're giving us data, they're giving us creative, they're giving us other resources and access. If those things aren't available, then our expertise is better used elsewhere. So we part as friends.
And yeah, let me clarify here also. I think you have anyway. The Grace Agostino, who asked this question to begin with, has clarified in the question box that she means resign, quit, fire. Those are all the synonyms she gave us, but that's what she has.
Yeah, Chad, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's an awkward conversation, right? But it's an important one. So, I think the big thing we're looking for is partnership. And what I mean by that, and Mike, I'm sure you agree, is when it comes to digital, we always say 30% of what we do every day we've never done before, because things are changing so fast. So we think it'll work. We've done things similar that are parallel and adjacent. So there's a lot of risk, right? So we need clients that partner with us and are willing to trust us, and also kind of tackle the new together, right? So that's a big part of it. Engagement is key, right? We need clients that are talking to us. We like when they ask hard questions. If it's one of those things where, a monthly meeting gets delayed or no-showed a few times, and there's lack of engagement, that's kind of a red flag, right? And then just beyond that, we have an assoule clause in our contract. Can I say that on this? So it's
no censorship here.
Because it's so hard to find great talent, right? So you want them to be, again, hard questions are good, challenging KPIs to achieve, but you gotta have people that are kind, and treat your team with respect. So that would be, to me, a big, it doesn't happen often, it's very rare, but every now and then, especially companies that are bought or teams change or something, you end up with that dynamic that's, probably a handful of times ever in my career, but it is something you have to act on.
Yeah, I just to tag onto that, I agree. There's so much business out there that we feel very fortunate as an agency. Most of it comes through referral, because we've done good work for a lot of years, and so we like all of our clients. So we haven't documented the other side like Chad has in his contracts, but usually it's kind of like, if this ain't working, let's just end it now. We're not going to hold somebody to a contract just based on that's what they signed. If it's not a good culture fit. Talent scarce, we can't burn out our resources on stuff we don't want to work on.
Okay, so what kind of ROAS is a good benchmark for QSR focused campaigns?
That is a big range. The factors involved in that are largely average order value. So we work with some clients that are really looking to drive down the cost of their service, a very noble and unique business model. So they will have a very low average order value. And we have some that are sit-down restaurants where we're looking at $50, $60 a head to eat there. So the ROAS between those two is remarkably different. There's also the variation between whether we're looking at a single location, 5 locations, 30, or 800 locations. The reason for that is the other component of ROAS is really ad spend. And so the bigger the audience, the more fish in the sea that the ad algorithms can target, the more efficient your spend's going to be, and that's going to drive down your cost per visit, cost per acquisition. That will hit a floor though, and at that point, that's when you know where your benchmark ROAS is, and then you look for different creative changes, different channels, different platforms, different data sources to try to drive that forward. So I would say, just to answer the question directly, we will see anywhere from 5x to 25x on the dollar value within the restaurant space.
Wow. And Mike, let me ask you if you agree with this. I mean, we always talk to clients about ROAS as kind of it's kind of determined by volume. You know, it's like, hey, if you want 50-to-1 ROAS, we're going to create a brand campaign on Google search. You're going to get 50-to-1. You know, but oftentimes it's about pushing the volume, you know, for us at least, pushing the volume till we hit a target ROAS. So you might be 10-to-1, but we get there by pushing the volume until we hit a point of diminishing returns, right? To get that critical mass and growth.
Yeah, for sure. And when you're dealing with geo-targeted businesses in the first place, that alone is a constraint that causes you to hit that diminishing return maybe a little bit faster than if you had nationwide targeting. So, you know, in that case, we totally agree with the blended. We are looking at our known audiences, our retargeting, our branded search. We look at them very differently than the more prospecting audiences, and we try to break them up. So we are looking for a blended ROAS, which I did. That was the number that I gave you. But we will see 2 to 3 times higher on known audiences than prospecting audiences. But you know, the thing that I really like about, you know, our segment within restaurants is people make 21 meal decisions a week. So, you know, if we can get them to make an extra one with one of our clients, there's a lot of incremental revenue that can be driven just from fishing in that same pool over and over and over.
Okay. So we fielded a bunch of questions from the audience. I was just wondering, in the few minutes we have left, if you guys, who I know speak to each other a lot, but if you have any questions for each other from the presentation that you want to make sure we cover here.
Not from my perspective, Mike. I appreciate the invitation.
Sure. Okay, well then with that, we'll wrap it up. One thing I wanted to mention, if you asked a question and we didn't get to it somehow or other, don't worry about it. The folks at Reveal have received all your questions, can respond to each of you directly after the webinar is over. Thanks again to Dan, Mike, and Chad for a great presentation today, and to the audience for some great questions and for clarification of the great questions. And thanks to all of those behind the scenes at Reveal who helped to put all of this together. We hope you found the wealth of information they presented helpful and informative, if not even inspirational. Stay tuned to MediaPost's website and digital publications in your inbox for more informative webinars to come from other valuable MediaPost partners in the weeks and months to come. Thanks to all of you so much for joining today. We'll see you next time, and stay safe out there. Take care.
Thanks all.